Welcome to this emergency Desi Teacher Diary. It can't wait. Imagine landing for the first time at JFK or Houston Airport tomorrow morning, where your visa interview is scheduled, or your H-1B work permit renewal is pending, or your Social Security check is expected on Monday, or even your child gets free lunch at school. And overnight, the lights go out in Washington and the mighty US government shuts down. I'm not talking about the usual political circus that we watch every day on television. I'm talking about real people, real families, caught in the crossfire of a government shutdown. And if you're an immigrant, a visa holder, or someone who simply relies on federal services, you're about to feel it first. But here's what we need to know. Not all government shutdowns are created equal. Some agencies and departments still keep running, and others, they shut it down completely. And the difference between knowing which is which could mean the difference between staying afloat or saying adios to the life as usual. So today, we'll cut through this chaos. No fear-mongering, no fluff, just the facts you need and the moves you can make right now to weather this storm. Let's dive in. So this is how the shutdown is going to work for all the federal services that we get here in the US. If you look at the number of people that work in many of these agencies and departments, you'll see the number of people who are being furloughed, or in other words, they're being laid off. So in the Environmental Protection Agency, we have about 89% of the people, 13,000 out of 15,000 are being furloughed or laid off. In Education Department, again, 87%. And I'll tell you what this actually means, being laid off in Education Department, how it's going to impact you or your children if you rely on student loans and things like that. Then in all of these departments, the State Department, which handles our visas and all of that, 62% of the people will be laid off. So you can imagine if these many people are laid off or furloughed, God knows for how long, or sometimes even permanent. We'll figure out how it's going to impact the visa services or the immigration services that you receive. And then we have the Defense Department, which is losing about 45% of the civilian workforce, not the soldiers and the generals and all of that. They will continue their work, but the civilian workforce can be laid off. And if you rely on getting loans for your business and all of that, 23% of the staff will be laid off. This is very important. Social Security Administration. Social Security Administration for all those elderlies and retirees, for the people who rely on Social Security checks. Remember that 12% of these people are being laid off, and that can also impact a vast number of services that you receive from Social Security Administration. Homeland Security, losing about 5% of these people. So in brief, you can say the impact actually varies from agency to agency. Some will continue mostly uninterrupted, as they are considered mandatory or self-funded. And I'll show you like Postal Service and Social Security Department, the benefits part of that department will still continue. And then if you go down here, agency by agency, if you look at the first, this says the Department of Agriculture, that if you rely on the food stamps, this is SNAP program is actually the food stamps, that and also the student lunch program. If your children get lunch at schools, their lunch, they will not be affected. These are the services that will continue. So your food stamp program and your children's school lunch will continue, but some other areas, some other activities will see the impact on will be disrupted. In the Department of Commerce, strangely, they handle the weather forecasts and the hazardous conditions. That somehow will continue, but the other services will be impacted. And just like that, in the Department of Defense, which we now call the Department of War, I guess, the military operations and the troops will work without pay during the shutdown. That's very interesting. They will work without any pay during this shutdown. But the contracts to the outside contractors will cease. And in the Education Department, which is furloughing or laying off about 87% of its manpower, the Student loans, student aids, the Pell Grant, and things like that, they will continue. And remember that. And also that means that you will also continue to make payments on your student loans. The payments on your student loans will not be suspended during this time. But new grants, those will be suspended, things like that. In the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, which is already losing many people as per the policies of the government and through a number of the executive orders, 89% of the people being laid off. The emergency and disaster assistance like FEMA kind of things, those will continue. But the new EPA permits and regulations and all of those things that you need for, let's say, new buildings or new houses, those things will be suspended. In the Elderly Health and Human Services Department, with 41% of the people being laid off, the things that will continue are your Medicare benefits and Medicaid services. But Medicare services will not issue new cards or replacement cards, but your Medicare benefits will still continue. And if there are outbreaks like influenza or like COVID or things like that, that will still continue to be handled. But a lot of other things, the approval of new drugs and things like that, those will be impacted during the period of this shutdown. In Homeland Security, the borders and custom agents, meaning at the airports and at the border entries, the border agents and the immigration officers will still continue work. The FEMA disaster will continue. Your tariffs and import enforcements on things like that, citizenship and green card applications will continue happening, but with delays. Keep that in mind. But this is very, again, sad and unsettling that those guys who help at the airport for in the security lines, those will continue to work, but without pay. That's very unsettling. And in the Department of Interior, remember that the access to some national parks will continue, but others may be unavailable. So you must check before starting off that which national park or which recreation area is open and which one is not. I hope you know most of this information will be posted on those parks websites. And the public access to some of the remote refuge areas or wilderness areas, those will be limited. So keep that, check that before you leave. As usual, if there are any crimes committed, the criminal litigation will continue happening. Don't think, that the cops are out or the FBI is out, so, it's all a free for all. No, those things will still continue. And likewise, the federal U.S. Marshals on the aircrafts and other places and FBI, they will continue. And so would be the federal prisons, including the medical care of those incarcerated will continue. But the civil program, the civil litigations will be delayed or will be canceled. In the Department of Labor, unemployment insurance benefits, unemployment paychecks will continue. That's a good news for those who are already having a bad luck with no job. So that will stop. But the other things which are not of any imminent danger, those things might stop. In the Small Business Administration, if you look at that, the disaster loans for Small Business Administration will continue to be dispersed and distributed, but processing of new loan business applications or the loan guarantee programs will be impacted, will not work. In the Social Security Administration, your Social Security benefits will continue, the benefit verification will cease. In the State Department, which handles all visas, the immigrant visas, the visitor visas, and your passports and all of those kind of things, those somehow will continue, and the U.S. embassies and consulates abroad will continue functioning, but all the other activities will cease. The air traffic controller, this is extremely unsettling. Air traffic controllers work under extreme pressure. There are so many YouTube videos on this topic which show the kind of stress these air traffic controllers work under, with hundreds of aircrafts landing and taking off every hour or so, and they will work, but they work without pay. That's very unsettling. So I guess this is more or less that covers all the areas which impact our daily lives in brief. And I hope that will give you some idea as to how to plan if you are consuming or you are using any of these services. Will be in a better position to plan for that. So that's about it, and I'll see you in the next Desi Teacher Diary. Until then, bye-bye.